What is the simple rule to keep your home network safe? Catchphrase that just so you know, like catch that phrase. The simple rule, right? I'm assuming just one rule. Why is breaking that rule so common? It sounds like this might be an easy rule to break, so I might be in trouble. Okay, how do I know if my router is following the rule? Following the rule? Honestly, outside of not having the internet access, I'm not sure if I would know what my router was doing, to be frank. Like, we're just being real.
Yep.
That said, this is the question I was excited to get to. What new tool are we building? Kim, Makani, you rock. We're getting a new tool. We're going to get layered up. All right, man. This is going to be our show today. Welcome back and thanks for tuning in. I'm Nick, and this is Super Simple Security Principles. Listen each week and learn how to think, not what to think. This episode 52, Don't Answer the Phone, is our second episode in our series on home network security. So, dude, I'm pretty pumped, man. We got our
Yeah.
Master Guardian with us. Hello, Makani.
Hey, Nick. Good to be here. And
Right?
it'll come as no surprise to you, but we introduced home network attacks last week, right? And I mentioned we'd be talking about that we'd be talking about that today, right?
Yep.
But it's gonna take more than one episode. Was this? I know, I know. I'm not sure exactly how much, but we are. So the focus for today is just one of the types of attacks,
Okay.
and that's the attacks that originate from the internet that are attacking uh, your router. Um, and if you remember, we talked about when that public website that we got exposed and the kind of attacks like it happened within seconds.
Yeah.
It's that kind of a similar type of attack. Um,
Okay.
and the reason I reference that is because the important thing to understand from that is just that, uh, your router is going to be attacked swiftly and constantly, even though it's not necessarily obvious. So,
Great.
yeah. Well, there
I
is good
caught a
news.
swiftly and a frequently. Like, wait a
Yep.
second.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there is good news, and we'll get to that. So, because otherwise, I mean, all of our networks would be compromised all the time, right? If
Right. Well, that's exactly what I thought. I was like, I wonder why technology
yeah,
fails us. They're always under attack.
yeah. Um. So we introduced, this you've been talking about, as technical router, right? But we've got to know what our router is, and one of its jobs is to help us make calls from the devices on our home network to devices on the internet, right? We talked about
Okay.
that.
Yep.
And that's the job that we tend to think of mostly like on a daily basis because it helps us do cool stuff on the internet, just like going to visit a website, right?
Right. Right. So the router basically is the funnel for all of our electronic devices and its connection to the internet, if we could.
Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Okay.
So the part that we're going to talk about a little more today that we don't usually think about as much is the other direction,
Okay.
right? So
The
calls that are
internet being
being
sent
made.
into us?
Exactly. When devices on the internet are trying to make calls to devices on your home network,
Okay. This be
right?
like if we download something?
No,
Oh,
no.
okay.
The calls we're talking about here, because that actually is initiated on our side. No, so the calls we're talking about is the attacks of hackers on the internet that are trying to make unfriendly calls
Ah,
to your home network, right? And the goal of those calls is to like take over your router, your laptop, your phone, whatever device that they can get to.
get access to.
Yep.
Hmm.
And it's the router's job, though, to protect you from those unfriendly calls.
Okay. Okay. So it's
So,
our funnel for going out
yep,
and our filter for coming in. It's trying to block all the crap.
yep. And it can filter on the way out, too. That's less commonly done, but yeah. And
Okay.
this is where the good news comes in, because the router has total control. Like, no devices out there on the internet can't just make direct calls to devices on your home network without the router knowing about it, approving it.
Okay. That's good news.
Yeah, it's really good news. Um, so that kind of, then that means the next question, I guess, is how do we know? How does the router know which calls are friendly and which ones are malicious, right?
Right. You took the words out of my mouth. That's where I was going with it. I was like, how does it filter this?
Yeah, and that's part of the trickiness, because there's no like just way to say, hey, this is a friendly call or an unfriendly call, right? And
Right.
this is where we're getting now finally to the title for this episode and the simple rule, and we're going to repeat it a whole bunch, and that is, don't answer the phone.
Okay.
So the idea is the router doesn't make a determination of friendly or unfriendly calls. It just says, I'm not taking any calls.
Right. Right.
Okay. That's my recommendation. That's a common advice. This isn't unique to me. Very commonly prescribed that you just don't have your router allow any calls from any devices on the internet to any devices on your home network ever.
I like that rule.
Yeah.
You know me. You know that I left my phone on do not disturb for years, not knowing it, you know?
Yeah. Yes, this is true. I would never have believed if I had not witnessed it and experienced it with you for myself, but yes. Yeah.
Look,
Well,
don't answer the calls, man. Especially in this case, it sounds like.
yeah. Well, but see, most people couldn't really get away with that, right? Because they want to get calls, and this is kind of the same problem with the router. There are things that people want to do.
Right.
They want to accept some of these calls, right? They're like, oh well, yeah, sure, and I mean it's the classic battle between security, and the ultimate is, a lot of people are like, don't install apps, don't do anything. It's like, okay, well, yeah, the safest thing is just not to ever connect to the internet.
Right. That's not feasible, though.
No, but in this case, for most people, I think it is actually pretty feasible, uh, for most scenarios anyway. And so, anyway, we're going to get into some of the temptations, though. Some of the cool tech, the reasons why people want to, a little bit. We'll talk about it more in future episodes, but
Okay. Because that is absolutely a question that is percolating in my mind right now. Like, why do we want to answer these calls? Are there reasons to answer these? Like,
yeah, yeah. Well, and you remember you're IT guy.
yeah.
Now, I don't remember if it's been too long now if he did this, but it wouldn't surprise me. Was he able to help you on some of your issues from afar?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And depending on the kind of issue, whatever. Anyway, one of the most common um, mistakes, one of the most common features that we're talking about is allowing remote administration of your network,
Mm,
right?
right.
And so somebody like an IT guy or like me, and this is something I value, right? Like I want to be able to help my friends and family, on the other side of the country with their
Right.
network issues.
Yeah.
Now they're separate. There's network issues and computer issues, but specifically network issues. Anyway, it's a big topic, but this is one of the things, is being able to help people from afar.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
And very specifically, though, for this, we're talking about remote administration of the router itself.
Mm.
Because if the bad guys can get control of your router, and your router is the thing that does all the protecting of your home network,
You're shafted.
right? That's obviously the big win for them, right? That's what
Right.
they want. And
They
so
want to gain control of that router.
yeah. And so it used to be, for example, as simple as, if you went and, checked the little box in your router and said, allow remote administration, routers, and this is long since not true, thankfully, but it used to be that there was a default username and password for your router administration. A lot of times it was admin. Admin
Oh,
was the
geez.
username, admin was the
Admin was
password,
password.
things like that.
Okay.
You can go look up old routers and the default username and password that they have for old
Oh,
routers because
I
it was so
recall
common.
this. I recall when Comcast would come hook up the internet and they'd bring in their little box, and their little box would have a sticker right there on it of the
Yeah.
router's username and password, or whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, and they do that now, but usually, like if you buy a new router, they're going to have a sticker on there, but it'll be a randomly generated password instead of the
Right.
same one. So we have made some progress, thankfully. But because before, if all you had to do is you check that box and you're basically instantly compromised because they knew your username, or they could guess anyway, easy username and password. Um, So the one other thing I want to mention on this point is there are some modern routers that have built this concept of remote administration into them because it's such a useful feature.
Mm-hmm.
They've built it, but using an entirely different approach than the legacy one that we were just talking about of the little checkbox. Like it's more built into it, and we don't have time to get into how that works. But um, I won't exactly call it safe, but it's definitely worlds safer at the very least than the legacy approach. So, depending on the type of router you have, how recently it is, if you have remote administration, it was built in from the ground up and you didn't have to enable things. It's possible you're safe, but anyway, if you have a question on that, happy to have you come to the forum and I'll look it up and figure out if this is a problem for you, if that makes sense.
Yeah, total.
So, because for most people though, I don't feel like it's a feature that you need.
Yeah, makes sense.
But if you want to help your old grandparents that don't know how to administer their network, that's kind of the biggest case that I think of that can be worthwhile.
Yeah, that's
So
right up my alley. Grandma,
yeah,
grandpa, let me
well,
help you out.
yeah, and
No,
admittedly,
but with
but
the trusted professional, I get it. I totally get it. Yeah.
yeah. So the next kind of category of temptation is what's called these days the Internet of Things. That have any association for you?
Internet has all sorts of things on it. I don't know if I know about the Internet of Things.
Yeah, well, so they call it that because so it used to be you'd think like our computers connect to the internet, right?
Right.
But
Right.
as time has gone on, everything connects to the internet. You've got a smart TV that connects to the internet. You've got the voice assistants, your front door, camera, doorbell, for heaven's sake, might connect to the internet.
My lights that cast some bright light on me are connected to the internet. They were a pain in my butt today.
Right. Yeah. So all these things, that's where the name comes from, that aren't really like, they're
Okay.
not computers, they're just other things.
Devices, other things that require internet.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And a lot of times they're even called, smart devices. And I put that one especially in quotes because it, the irony.
I've heard smart devices. I think we all have.
Yeah. And smart device typically just means that they connect to the
It's
internet
connect
so
to
they
the
can
internet.
do all these, smart things. But for me, at least as a security guy, mostly when I hear the word smart device, that translates to security risk.
Right. smart device security risk.
Yeah. So that's kind of my rule of thumb is the smarter your home is, the more at risk your home network probably is, because of each of those devices can connect to the internet, can be compromised, can have a vulnerability that the hackers find in it to get into that device, and then they worm their way into your other devices through it. And we'll be talking a little bit more about that, but that's the short version.
Great.
Yeah.
I have a lot of smart devices. Not that I'm super tech savvy, but I've got a lot of smart devices. That kind of makes me scary because you're opening up security risks for each one of those.
Yeah, and there's some good protections that we can do to help quite a bit with that. But
Okay.
yeah, well, and the sad reality is that just like in pretty much every area of security, the smart devices, features tend to run ahead of security. There's lots of cool tech, and they're not always built with like rock solid security from ground up in
Ground up,
mind.
yeah. Yep. Yeah.
So, um, so the last temptations I'll mention, and we're not going to get into these again, just interest of time. We are going to be talking about them in future episodes. But if you hear the words universal plug and play and port forwarding, if either of those features are like active on your network, then that you're basically violating the don't answer the phone rule.
Mm. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I'm not uber familiar with either one of those two.
Yeah.
So.
You'll see universal plug and play, especially on boxes. Sometimes it's to like help printers connect easier. Like the whole idea of plug and play, right? It's super easy to connect something in. Anyway.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the thing is, as I've been thinking about this, and I'm guessing this question might be percolating in your head right now too, Nick, is I kept thinking, like, it would really be nice if our listeners could definitively answer the question, is my router following the don't answer the phone rule?
Right. Right. Absolutely. Like,
Yeah.
it's something I wonder because I'm sitting here thinking, oh crap, I've got lots of smart devices. Like we're opening up some vulnerabilities. Like, am I answering bad calls?
Yeah. Well, and it's hard, right? Like we talked about different things to check and whatever, but that, and that helps. That's why we've talked about it. We'll
Right.
talk about it some more. But still, it's just not quite the same as a warm and fuzzy of just being able to answer blanket no. It's not, answering any calls. And
Right.
here's the thing, for computer geeks, we have easy ways to check this. But
Why am I not surprised?
right. Well, it's part of what hackers do too, right? Like they want to see if you're answering any calls, and so there's very much an overlap between those things. There's a similar idea that we'll talk about more in the next episode. But
Okay.
anyway, this is what I was like. I looked for a while, and I mean, I found some that kind of fit the bill, but none that I was like, yes, this looks super reputable. It's super, it's going to work really well for our listeners. It's super simple. It's going to give you the advice on how to fix it if it does find any issues, any of those kind of things. Like, it just wasn't happy with anything I found. So I talked to Kim and I said, hey, well, what if we build it, And so, we don't, this is, we don't know how soon we'll get to it, but it's not like a super complex tool for given, like, the narrow focus that we want to use it for our listeners.
Okay.
Because the tools that like I would use as a computer geek to do it, it's going to have more features and do things than we necessarily need to have. Anyway, I think it's doable in a reasonable amount of time. I don't know exactly, but anyway, it's going to be awesome.
Yes.
So, and we'll spend next episode talking about that.
Tune in for next episode.
Yeah, because I feel like one of the things I've found a lot in talking to people about tools is they'll pay for a software tool, but unlike physical tools, you can kind of experiment with a lot easier to tell what it does for you and how it works.
Yeah.
Like software tools are much harder. So it's like, what is this tool even doing? And I
Right.
feel that's one of the things I really feel strongly in is if any software tool that you're using, you at least need to understand kind of, a little bit. It doesn't have to
Yeah.
go like this deep, but this deep
Yeah.
understanding. And so that's kind of what our goal will be with that episode.
Excellent. We're going to keep it
So,
super simple.
yep. Yep. Exactly. So, this is one of those times, Nick. I think I have all my things covered. Are there any questions, unanswered questions that have come up for you that
Oh man.
you know, or anything else you want to, bring up?
For me personally, I really wish there was a switch that I could just flip and say, no more calls coming in. No calls for you. You know, like I really want that switch. So I'm super excited to hear, obviously, a little more about the tools that we're going to be able to put in place that will help keep our routers a little bit safer. Um, Obviously, for me, there's a ton of questions that come up. Like, dude, like, holy crap, my router's under attack. Of course, they want to attack your router because, like you said, if they get control of it, think of how many devices you're literally on your network. Like the days of you just connecting via the internet from one computer are way gone.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know if I could count how many devices my son has connected,
Right.
you know? And so for me, obviously I do. I want some call screening. I don't want those calls coming in. That's the biggest thing that my mind is right now, like stewing on. Like, how do we stop this?
Yeah. Well, and like I said, the good news is that the more time goes on, the more router manufacturers are figuring this out and having defaults that make sense, that are more secure out of the box for the most part. Really, like it's made worlds of progress. So
Oh, good.
um, that's the really good news. But then people tinker, and anyway, it's a tool I'm excited about to help, because the thing is, even with the progress, I still haven't seen any, like you said, right? What you really want viscerally is like a switch on your, physical switch on your router where you can check it, you can just like toggle it that says, okay, now I know that all is well, right?
Yep. Yep.
And
Exactly.
so that's the closest equivalent we can get is this tool. And it won't flip the switch, but it will at least be like a red light, green light kind of idea, right?
Nice.
Basically, in the end, that's the idea. And so, at least for the foreseeable future, I think that's the closest we can get. And so that's what we're gonna shoot for.
Awesome.
So,
Awesome. So have we reached that point in time of our show? Like, have we reached a call to action?
yep.
Let's have it.
Yep. So this is another kind of interim one.
Okay.
Last time we had them find their routers
Manual.
brand name. No, well, not quite. Right. That's actually
Oh,
for
that's
today. Last time we just had them find the brand and model. Right.
yes.
No, that's
Brand and
okay. Yeah.
model.
Yeah. Right. So the next natural step is right to find the manual. Um, physical or digital. I know these days physical is going to be pretty rare. And most people are going to be searching online for a digital copy,
Yeah.
which is totally great. But the one word of warning, because I've searched for a lot of router manuals over the years, helping people go to their house. I need to help them, pull up their manual, right? um, the method I suggest is not just to do a Google search for the manual for that router, is to actually identify the brand, like we talked about, and search for the official website for that brand. Because there's going to be a lot of websites and websites that like you don't want to visit that are going to come up when you're searching for manuals of any sort, but router manuals included.
Okay.
There's all sorts of sites that like will claim to have compilations of manuals and stuff. You don't want to mess with that for a variety of reasons. They range from sketchy to nefarious.
Oh, joy.
And
So go
so
directly to the manufacturer's website.
exactly. And there, using the model number, then you can find the specific model on their website and then go download the manual from there.
Okay.
And again, like always, if you have any trouble finding your router manual, happy to help. So just come to the forum. So
Should be pretty easy. You're looking for two things on your router. Once you have those two things, you're going to run.
yeah, well, the thing I think I've seen people run into the most is,
Yeah.
on the router there's a serial number, there's a model number, like there's a MAC address, like there's all sorts of things, and it's not always obvious like what the model number is, right? So I'm glad you brought that up actually, because so I mean, you obviously you're a car guy, Ford is the brand, right? And
Right.
then they have a F-150. I don't even know the names of the other ones, but those are the models, right? Those are the types
Right.
of cars and
Yeah.
vehicles. And so that's kind of what we're looking for is it's not going to be crazy long and unique. And usually it's going to be a lot more prominent and big anyway. It's going to be on the boxing. I don't know. I'm not sure how else exactly to describe the model number compared to all the other things. I mean, usually it'll be labeled model number too. But
Right.
anyway, that's the biggest stumbling block that I see people running into is just there's so many numbers on there. Which one am I looking at to know? And with a model number, it's not necessarily a number either. Like it could be a number, could be some letters,
Yeah.
but it's usually not anywhere near as long as a serial number, for example, or a MAC address. But
Okay.
anyway, there you go.
If you have questions, reach out. We can help you find it, right?
Yep, exactly.
Love to hear from you on our forum. Dude, so where do I start? Like, you ready to roll into our next episode to get these guys listening to our next episode?
Yeah, well, we're gonna be that's exactly right. We'll be talk about the new tool in the next episode.
Thanks for stealing my thunder, man.
Sorry, well, I was confused.
Dude, our next episode, we're going to be talking about our new tool, right? Like, we're building a tool that will help you with your router and calls. I'm excited about this. So you really want to tune in. So don't miss it. Come hear what our tool's about. We're going to take care of you. By the way, Makani has an idea about this tool that I'm going to tell you about in our next episode. Like, you might be giving away a little too much, Makani. Just
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
So tune in to next episode and hear what Makani's giving out, and because you don't want to miss it. Super excited about this.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate that.
You betcha. Dude, that's our show. That was a good show.
Are you ready to take action and wondering where to start? Get my Bulletproof My Identity Starter Kit for free. The 7 most vital layers of protection everyone needs. I'll send you one step at a time and help you if you get stuck. Just go to bulletproofmyid.com and enter your name and email, and I will send you the first step. Again, that's bulletproofmyid.com.